and thank you so much for joining today's NeedyMeds special topic webinar, Counterfeit Medical Product Scams and How to Protect Yourself, presented by NeedyMeds partner, the Partnership for Safe Medicines. As I mentioned, my name is Carla. I'm the Director of User Engagement at NeedyMeds, and before we get started, I'll offer a few points so you can make the most out of today's presentation. First of all, if you do have questions, you can ask them at any time by typing them into that questions section of your GoToWebinar control panel. We will take breaks to answer questions along the way, and we'll leave time to answer questions at the end of the presentation as well. Keep in mind, though, if we don't get the chance to answer your question, we will follow up with you via email, but you can always reach out to NeedyMeds or the Partnership for Safe Medicines, and I will provide that contact information as well. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on the NeedyMeds YouTube channel, which I hope you subscribe to. And as I mentioned, and you saw on that first slide, you can find my PowerPoint, Shabir's PowerPoint, as well as other materials we thought you'd be interested in that handout section of your GoToWebinar control panel. So with that, let's get started with what is NeedyMeds. NeedyMeds is a national nonprofit co-founded more than 2 decades ago by a retired family physician, Dr. Richard Sagel, and his friend, Libby Overly, who is a medical social worker. Rich is actually still the NeedyMeds president. And what you're looking at on your screen is our mission statement, a statement about how we achieve that mission, and our vision statement. But simply put, NeedyMeds connects people to programs that will help them afford their healthcare expenses. And we do that free and anonymously through our helpline, 1-800-503-6897, and our website, needymeds.org. I always like to put up a screenshot of our homepage because our website is really the face of our organization. As you can see, hopefully clearly, I'm sorry, I know that image is a little stretched out, but hopefully you can see that our website really is full of a ton of information that we encourage you to check out further when time allows if you're not already familiar with it. In the meantime, I'll just point out a few resources. First of all, if you are looking for healthcare savings resources, you will begin your search, as you guessed it, under that Healthcare Savings tab. Next to that, under the Education tab, is where you can sign up for webinars, our monthly e-newsletter called Vitals, or order brochures, for example. I did mention that today's webinar is being recorded, and you will be able to find that recording on our YouTube YouTube channel. I was close. There is a link to that channel at the top right of our homepage with the rest of the social media icons. It's the third one from the left. And as I said, I do hope you subscribe. That way you'll be notified when new content such as videos, webinars, or presentations are added, and you won't miss anything. You can also find out about other upcoming webinars on the bottom right-hand calendar of events. So as you saw a few slides ago, a big part of our mission is educating people. And of course, we define that by educating people about NeedyMeds, but we also fulfill the education part of our mission by making sure our users are educated healthcare consumers, which is why we are so pleased to have Shabir Safdar, the Executive Director of the Partnership for Safe Medicines, here to share his expertise. So first, let me tell you a little bit about the Partnership for Safe Medicines. It was founded in 2003. It's a nonprofit focused entirely on researching the danger of counterfeit drugs in America and educating the public about how to stay safe from them. Today's presentation, as you saw in the title and the description, is going to specifically focus on counterfeit medical product scams and how to protect yourself against them. So the pandemic has brought medical counterfeiters into the limelight with fake treatments, fake protective equipment, and even fake vaccines. So how do these criminals operate? Do they get caught? How can you protect yourself from this? In this presentation, Partnership for Safe Medicines Executive Director and expert Shabir Safdar will go through some recent counterfeit scams, show you how they worked, and of course, ways to protect yourself and teach your community also how to stay safe. So now let me tell you just a little bit about Shabir before I pass the mic and the screen to him to kick off the presentation. Shabir has served as the Executive Director of the Partnership for Safe Medicine since 2017. He is passionate about patient safety and the dangers of counterfeits, having seen firsthand the dangers of counterfeits in countries around the world where a closed, secure drug supply chain doesn't exist. As I said, Shabir lives in San Francisco with his wife and 2 children, but we are lucky to have him here with us today. So without further ado, and as I say, hopefully seamlessly, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic and the screen to Shabir. So bear with me while I do that. And as Shabir grabs the screen, please, again, remember that you can ask questions at any time by typing them into the questions section of that GoToWebinar control panel. And we will do our best to take those questions along the way, but also leave time to answer questions at the end as well. So with that, Shabir, I will pass you the mic and let you take it away. Thanks, everybody, and enjoy the presentation.
Thank you. And I'll assume that you can hear me unless I hear some screaming that I'm on mute, which has been the 2021
You are good to go.
adventure.
You are good to go. Yes,
Awesome.
and along with those questions about the content, please do give me the heads up if anybody experiences any technical difficulties along the way. And again, you can share that by typing them into the questions section. Thanks so much. Take it away, Shabir.
Thanks, everybody. And thank you, Carla. I just want to really quick mention that if you are interested in the kind of work we do around counterfeit medicines and medical products, you can find us on almost every social media platform, whichever one you use the most. Just look for the Partnership for Safe Medicines, and you can find the work we do, which is at least usually a video every week and several postings a day about different kinds of scams that we've encountered. Just as a bit of background, the Partnership for Safe Medicines is 18 years old. We have been studying counterfeit medicines and doing public education since 2003, and we are a coalition made up of members that are all nonprofits or trade associations. So we don't, as of about 5 years ago in particular when I made this rule, we don't take any corporate money. It just helps us do our advocacy better, I think. But our members include everybody from the start to finish of the drug supply chain, so manufacturers, wholesalers, pharmacists, and patients. So let me start out with a contextual statement that I think is important to remember, because a lot of what I talk about is a lot of crime and it can be scary. But your US licensed pharmacy, especially your community pharmacy, you will not get a counterfeit medication going to that pharmacy. That's not really the route that counterfeits take when they get to people in the US. It happens very, very occasionally, but you're more likely to be struck by lightning than to actually walk into your corner pharmacy in your neighborhood and getting a counterfeit. That's just not how it happens. So I don't want to discourage anyone from trusting their local community or hospital pharmacy. Pharmacists are, in fact, very, very safe guardians of a safe medicine supply. That doesn't mean the criminals aren't out there, but they have a lot of trouble getting past their stuff past pharmacists. So we've had in this country 4 waves of counterfeit medications, major waves of counterfeit medications that have entered the US and gotten to US patients. And the one that we're in right now is the 4th, and it is counterfeit pills made with fentanyl. Fentanyl, or I should say a fentanyl analog. Fentanyl is actually a medical grade substance that's an opioid. It's used by anesthesiologists. You sometimes see it in patch form. It's a specially made one. Similar to heroin, when it's given in a hospital setting or in a prescription setting, it's very carefully controlled. But what we're seeing is that criminals are using it because it behaves like heroin and it's a lot cheaper. And the dangerous thing about fentanyl is that it is deadly in small amounts. So 1 milligram of fentanyl is enough to kill you, and 2 milligrams to make you high, and 2 milligrams is enough to actually kill you. Some of the analogs like carfentanil one grain is enough to actually arrest your heart and your breathing, and then you'll be not with us anymore. So these fentanyl products are actually very potent. And what happened about around starting in 2015, but in full swing in 2017, was that criminals in the U.S. figured out that they could buy fentanyl because it's very easy to smuggle in small amounts. They could buy it from China, and they could make fake pills by ordering pill presses and illegal but still available on the internet molds for pills on the internet, and they would get them shipped to their homes or warehouses or wherever they were going to make fake pills, and then they would make fake pills, and the profit was very, very good. You could turn a $15,000 investment or even a $10,000 investment into a couple $1,000,000 pretty fast. And that creation of these kinds of pills is what the crisis we're in today. If you look here, some examples of counterfeit pills that have been made with fentanyl and seized, and this is the kind of stuff that you are at risk of getting, not through a pharmacy, but literally in some cases just lent to you by a friend if you don't really ask carefully where they got their medication. So they're made Xanax, Percocet, oxycodone, OxyContin. A number of these products, obviously, they're all require a prescription to get. And we as Americans don't have a really good sense of the idea that you shouldn't borrow medication from each other. I think everyone I've ever talked to, including myself, at one point or another has said, hey, have you got an Advil? In some stronger cases, have you got Oxy left over from an injury? I pulled a muscle. We as Americans don't think that that might be a fatal event. But because of these pills that are made very poorly and often with too much fentanyl in them, as an accident, they are out there, and they are basically a single event in which you make one mistake and there's a consequence that is life-changing. An example of this is Tosh Ackerman. He's a young man. I work with his mom. I've got a picture back here that she gave me of the two of them. He was having a real stressful weekend. He was having a medical issue that couldn't be looked at until Monday, and a friend of his had available a Xanax, and he didn't think that a single Xanax would kill him, but being extra cautious, he actually broke off a quarter of it and took it, and there was enough fentanyl in that corner of that Xanax to kill him, and he was dead probably pretty quickly, in under an hour. And his girlfriend found him the next morning. It was obviously too late to reverse it with Narcan or anything like that. But it just goes to show you that these pills, when they're manufactured illegally, as this one was, can be incredibly dangerous, even in small portions. So we've been following this crisis in the U.S., and we have confirmed that these fake pills have been found in all 50 states. And we've actually confirmed deaths due to toxicology from fake pills in actually it's 46 states now. We're in the process of revising this upward. So it doesn't matter where you are definitely at risk of getting one of these pills if you ever take a pill that didn't come straight to you from the pharmacy or the hospital. And I know we all think, oh, well, that sounds dangerous, I would never do that, but you'd be surprised. People who trust each other will share medication sometimes, and if you don't ask where it came from, you could be in a lot of trouble. We're seeing this actually particularly bad all the way through the lockdown. The deaths related to fentanyl, which includes people who took fentanyl that happened to be in heroin, so they were using illicit drugs, but also people who took what they thought was a real oxycodone or a Xanax. Those deaths have been rising ever since, and these are the CDC's numbers. They come out about 6 months delayed, and they show no sign of going down. It's been really, really rough for this particular substance. One of the latest developments we're seeing, which is very problematic, is that drug dealers are using a system called Snapchat. It's a social media channel, and it's very popular with kids. And drug dealers will post pictures of the medicines they have for sale, including fake pills made with Oxy, and and proceed to sell them and meet up in real life and sell them. And so, while this is always tragic for someone to get a counterfeit pill and succumb to this kind of poisoning, we're seeing kids as young as 14 dying this way, and Snapchat-related drug dealer deaths of fake pills have happened so far in 14 states. So we believe what we have is the outbreak of a nationwide epidemic of poisonings. And it's really quite tragic. If you have children, I really urge you just to take some time and talk to them about the mistakes that you as a parent can help them clean up from, and the mistakes that you cannot. And buying pills from people and taking them, or taking a pill that someone offers you that didn't come from the pharmacy, that's one of those mistakes that a parent can't fix. To help you with that, we've actually put out a handout, which I believe is uploaded in the attachments. Just has some conversations, some things that family members who lost sons or sisters to these counterfeit pills would have said, and maybe they will be conversation provokers for the conversation you have with your own family members, including grown children. We see people well into their 40s who succumb to these poisonings. So it's not just kids, and it's not just addicts. And in all these cases, all three of these people were not individuals who were struggling with addiction at the time that they got a fake pill. One of the developments that has been problematic is that we've seen counterfeiters try and camouflage their pills as other things. So we've seen seized examples of baby aspirin that had fentanyl in it, and that was not because counterfeiting baby aspirin is big money, but because if you make it into baby aspirin, maybe nobody will bother you if you get stopped by the police. Also metformin, which is a diabetes medication. And again, you should never ever take any pill and put it in your body that did not come from, that was not prescribed to you, and that didn't come from a pharmacy or a hospital pharmacy. One of the new trends that we're seeing that is very problematic is we're seeing counterfeit Adderall made with methamphetamine. Again, these criminals who have pill presses just get a different mold. They take out the Xanax mold and they put in Adderall mold that is the shape of that pill. And we've seen them, Adderall is a stimulant and methamphetamine is a stimulant. So we've seen them, instead of trying to buy Adderall on the black market and then resell it, it's just cheaper to make it, and make it with methamphetamine, which is easier to get than the other active ingredients. So we've seen this happen. It's been in a number of states so far. One of the big dangers is that the audience for Adderall, the patient base for Adderall, tends to often be young, and high school and college people in the early 20s. There's a culture of trading Adderall and sharing Adderall for people who want to study. Unfortunately, college students sometimes think of it as a study aid and will take it even though it was not prescribed to them by getting it from someone else who does have a prescription. That kind of sharing is very dangerous in a world in which there are counterfeit medicines floating around. And so while you won't drop dead from a counterfeit Adderall made with meth, you do not want to start down a meth addiction pathway because you thought you were taking an Adderall and you were taking methamphetamine. We've seen these pills in all of these states so far, and we don't believe that the problem is going away. There's a demand for it, and there's money to be made. And so I think this map will get redder as we go. Another interesting aspect in the world of counterfeiting is that people talk all the time about getting medicine from Canada, and quite often when you're buying medicine online from what you think is a Canadian pharmacy, it's even if it has Canada in the name, it's not actually Canadian. And if you look closely and they're being honest, they'll tell you that they fulfill their medication shipments often from other countries. They'll say Canada and other countries, but it doesn't really come from Canada. Canada doesn't have the drug supply to supply the US. But one of the developments we've seen that's very disturbing is that there have been 2 different criminal rings that in the last 9 months have been caught making fake oxy and out of fentanyl. And this is one of the seized pill presses in the Home Depot bucket they put their pills in when they're done making them. And then proceeding to make perfect pharmacy-sized, pharmacy-looking packaging. So this is wholesale packaging. You would only sell this to a pharmacy. These are 1,000-count tablet bottles. These are perfect replicas of what the label should look like if this was actually made by Teva, including their logo. And it's very disturbing to have criminals in Canada starting to get into the counterfeiting of wholesale packaging. And we've actually seen this. If you go back and look at some of our older videos, we captured video of somebody on social media on Reddit who bragged that he'd gotten one of these bottles, and my staff was all like, oh my gosh, that's one of the fake bottles. We know it has to be a fake bottle because Teva doesn't make 1,000 tablet bottle of this particular medicine. They make 250 and I think 500 count bottles, but not 1,000. And so if you have 1,000 count bottle of this particular product, it's definitely a fake. And there's definitely people floating around who bought it.
So Shabir,
next,
excuse me.
yes.
Excuse me. Before you move on to the next slide and part of the presentation, the mention of Canada actually brought up some questions from our audience members. Here, I'm just going to list you a bunch of them because I think you can probably summarize it in or put it all together and let us know your response to it. So here's a question. So I get medicine from a Canadian web pharmacy. Is it not a real pharmacy? Are they actually regulated? And if something goes wrong, what are my options?
So let's start in reverse. If something goes wrong, you don't have any options. That is the real scary part of this. Your local community pharmacy, even a mail order pharmacy that is somewhere in the US, is regulated by either your state board of pharmacy or the board of pharmacy in the state that they ship from. A pharmacy, an online pharmacy in Canada is very likely not actually shipping you medicine out of the Canadian drug supply. But more importantly, they're not regulated in the US, right? They don't have a pharmacy license from, let's say, the California Board of Pharmacy where I live or the Massachusetts Board of Pharmacy where you live. So there's no one for you to complain to. There are some provinces in Canada that sell licenses to online pharmacies in Canada. And the first thing you'll see if you go to that the College of Pharmacy that sells those is that they don't take complaints or concerns or customer issues from Americans. So they're basically selling a piece of paper without any actually regulatory enforcement to back it up. And this is all, of course, incredibly dangerous. In fact, I will tell you that even if you were going to a real pharmacy in Canada, the fact that that medication is not coordinated with the rest of your healthcare is in and of itself dangerous. But the fact that if they actually ship you a counterfeit, they can't lose their license. We can't do anything to them is quite challenging. And this was actually tested in 2008, from 2008 to 2012. One of the waves of counterfeits we had was counterfeit cancer medication. And it went to American patients, and people died because they did not get the cancer medication that they were supposed to get, and they instead just got water that was injected during their oncology procedure. One of the individuals involved in that ring was a Canadian national, and the US tried for 4 years to extradite him from Canada and never succeeded. And after admitting that his company had sold almost $80 million of fake and black market drugs like that, he didn't even serve a day in jail. And that's the real problem. When we go outside of the regulatory environment of the US, we lose the ability to actually hold these people responsible. So, there's a lot of shopping you can do in the US. There's a lot of generics available that, by the way, are cheaper than Canadian generics in the US. But the minute that you start going outside the US to these kinds of online pharmacies, you're really putting your life in danger.
Thank you so much, Shabir.
Awesome. So what we've seen for the last year and a half of the pandemic has been an explosion in medical product scams in the area of everything related to COVID-19. The one thing we have not seen in the US is fake vaccines, but we've seen fake wipes, bleach wipes. We've seen fake therapeutic products. We've seen fake protective equipment, so fake gloves and fake masks, which is really scary. In both West Virginia and Washington, First responders and hospital workers have ended up using what were counterfeit N95 masks that were made by a counterfeiter, and they were of a lower quality and didn't protect them, and so they were exposed to COVID. We've seen fake test kits, and that's what you see in the bottom left. Those are fake test kits that have been seized by Customs and Border Protection. And of course, the danger there is if you have a test kit and it tells you you don't have COVID, but it's completely counterfeit, then if you have COVID, you're going to go out and spread it and infect other people, and then find yourself, responsible for, giving your grandmother COVID, which is what you don't want to do. And then we've also seen entirely fake therapeutics, and you see this in the bottom middle. This is seized by CBP. This is a lanyard that is supposedly soaked in bleach that you wear around your neck. And supposedly the fumes from the bleach are supposed to kill the COVID before it goes into your lungs. Needless to say, if there was enough bleach to actually effectively kill airborne particles, you probably would have trouble breathing. And so even the premise of this product, which is not an FDA-approved product, doesn't even work. But we've seen a lot of this, and it's been really quite scary.
So, Shabir, excuse me, one other question coming in. I believe you already answered this, and the question came in really as soon as you popped up the screen about anything counterfeit related to COVID. But again, just to stress, have we seen any counterfeit versions of the COVID vaccines in our country yet?
Not in the U.S. And
Thank you.
I think I have a pretty solid theory as to why. It's because there's no money to be made.
There you go.
Almost everybody here, if you've gotten a COVID vaccine, and I hope you have, and if you haven't, I hope you go get one soon because they're amazing medical miracles, probably didn't pay for it. You're not supposed to have to pay for it. That's not how it works. And counterfeiters, of course, need to make money. That's why they're in the counterfeiting business. But in the rest of the world, where the vaccines are not free and they're hard to get, we have seen lots of vaccine counterfeiting that has everyone very, very concerned. So it's not here. The vaccine you get, unless you go to some mysterious hotel room and get your injection, which I wouldn't recommend, you go to your local health center, you go to your hospital, you go to your pharmacy, you're going to get the real vaccine in the US.
Thank you, Shabir, and thank you to our audience for participating.
Yeah, thank you. I like the questions as we go. So one of the things that counterfeiters have available to them is money to make really good packaging, right? If you're not actually spending money on making a great mask that will protect you from COVID, you can spend extra money on the packaging to make it look good. So here are two examples of fake holograms on 3M N95 masks that counterfeiters made. The funny part of this is that 3M doesn't put holograms on their boxes of masks. So the counterfeiter's box looks more official than the actual 3M mask. Of course, if you don't have the money that you're spending on the product, you can spend it on the counterfeit packaging instead. If in your life you actually encounter boxes of 3M masks, or you find yourself in possession of one, you want to see if it's real, it will now have a safeguard and these pair of codes on it. And you can go to the 3m.com safeguard URL and type in those two codes, and it will tell you if it's a real product or not. And they've basically implemented a version of track and trace. We're seeing scams around vaccines, but not really specific vaccine scams themselves. We're seeing vaccine misinformation. That is people making claims about the vaccines like they make you magnetic, right? So a binder clip will stick to your body. That's not true. They don't make you magnetic. We've seen people selling fake fraudulent vaccine cards so that you can pretend to be vaccinated and probably expose people when you haven't actually been vaccinated. And then we've seen some vaccine swindles. People promising, telling you that they're from Pfizer and that they're giving away an iPad to people who've been vaccinated. And of course, that's not true. Pfizer is not giving away iPads to people who've been vaccinated. We're also
And
seeing
Shabir, excuse
yes.
me. I'm sorry, excuse me again. I have, before we move on, since you were talking about vaccine scams, we had an audience member chime in with something that is really germane exactly to this conversation. And it's not a question, it's really just a comment. I thought I'd share it and certainly see if you had any response to this. What our audience member shares is, unfortunately, we have seen counterfeit COVID-19 vaccines blooming in Latin America. For example, in Peru, vials of counterfeit vaccines in fact had seawater inside. Since there's not enough vaccines in Latin America, this makes it attractive to counterfeiters. And I was wondering, had you heard of this, or if you'd like to share anything more about that particular comment?
So that particular case, I can't talk too much more about, but I can tell you that there was a relatively well-publicized bust in Mexico where a fake clinic was selling shots of Pfizer vaccine for $1,000 a shot, and there was nothing in it. And at least 80 people they calculate had gotten that fake vaccine. And it's happening other places. I think there was China actually had a big bust of fake vaccine traffickers. They arrested 80 people, and it's happening more and more. I think it will be easily 2 to 3 years before enough countries around the world get supply of vaccines, and until then, vaccine counterfeiting elsewhere outside the U.S. will be big money and worth it for counterfeiters to do. And it's really quite tragic because we do have the technology, this amazing medical technology, and it's sad to see that that people would actually take advantage of others like that.
It absolutely is sad, and it goes back to what you said when it's attractive to counterfeiters because there's money to be made. And thank you to our audience member for the comment.
Awesome. So one of the scams we have seen in the U.S. is not one that victimizes Americans, but is a vector for victimizing others in the world, which is the diversion of vaccine packaging out of the U.S. supply. Of course, we have been so fortunate to have so much inventory of vaccines in the U.S., and we've vaccinated, over 100 million people without question. But the hardest part of a counterfeit, of course, is the packaging, right? Getting the packaging right is what allows you to make money selling it as if it was the real thing. So we've been seeing, and this is an ad from eBay, people selling empty vaccine vials. And our belief is that they are being diverted outside the US and filled with water so that people can sell fake vaccines. Because again, the hardest part of a counterfeit is the bottle itself, is for a vaccine. So this isn't an imaginary event. I actually bought these 2 vials from this eBay ad, and they arrived. And I was kind of sad that they arrived because once they arrived, I had to actually fill out a bunch of paperwork with the FBI to report this, so they could go find the seller and explain to him the legal ramifications of what he was doing. But we've seen empty vials pop up on the dark web, and of course, fake vaccines, as our previous questioner pointed out, are outside the U.S. And buying these vials is a cheap way of making a fake vaccine. You can now, of course, make the vials if you have access to a shop that does glass making.
Unbelievable. And we are getting a comment from an audience member that says there are actually quite a few websites offering for sale COVID-19 vaccines, and is sending along some of those. Maybe after the presentation, Shabir, I'll forward you those links. Absolutely.
Thank you. So I mentioned before that there were fake post-vaccination surveys floating around. And so these are 3 of them that that the Homeland Security, the HSI, the government federal agency that does law enforcement in that area, has captured and has distributed. And the way the scam works is you get a text or an email telling you that after you've been vaccinated, Pfizer would like you to do a survey and you could get a reward. And sometimes the reward is as big as an iPad, but you do have to pay for shipping. Now, of course, you're not getting an iPad, and the person who takes your shipping money is not going to ever be able to be found. But even if you didn't give them money, you would actually be at risk because they require personal information that can be used in identity theft. And so these are three of the examples. All three companies, by the way, have confirmed that they're not doing any public outreach with post-vaccination surveys. So it's almost certain that if you get a post-vaccination survey from someone that made a vaccine, it was fake, and you can ignore it safely and move on with your day.
Wow. A couple of other questions related to mailing fake information or fake, whether it's fake surveys or actually the fake drugs or vaccines when it comes specifically to mail. And I really like this question. If something is, if it's gotten from out of the country, but it's shipped into the United States, and this may delve into the criminal justice aspect of it a little bit, but the question is that a delivery scam?
So it's actually a federal crime. It's called introduction of misbranded medication. And so when you bring into the drug supply medicine that's not been approved by the FDA, or of course, outright counterfeits of things that have been approved, it's actually a federal crime. If you cross state lines, it's definitely suddenly a federal crime. And the delivery, I guess it's a delivery scam, but ultimately it's a crime to sell or distribute medication that has not been through the FDA's approval process and is a counterfeit of something that has. Either one of those is a problem.
Thank you so much. And Shabir, another question from the audience is anything done, and if so, what is being done to main e-markets like eBay if they're perpetuating this kind of a sale?
So eBay has worked very hard to take these ads down. So if I found that ad for these bottles, and I ordered them right away. A few hours later, the ad was down, but they'd already sold and they were still shipping to people. And I think that they're getting more and more aware of COVID-related scams, and law enforcement, especially Homeland Security and the FBI and others, are working with them to try and make them aware of their responsibility of being a good and safe marketplace. So far, it seems like they're doing a good job. The complicated actors here are the ones that are not on US soil, right? You can go to eBay. The FBI can go and visit eBay and explain to them their responsibilities. It's a lot harder for them to do that with Alibaba, which is in China, right? Or any other international marketplace where they can't even arrest the people doing it because they're not Americans or on US soil. They're trying to work hard, and many of those marketplaces will be cooperative, but they're cooperative, but they're not really compelled to be cooperative. They're trying to just avert trouble that might be a problem later, but they don't actually have the threat of going to jail over their head.
And we actually have another comment coming in specifically saying Alibaba has prohibited sales of drugs starting April 29th.
I saw that. I'm interested to see how good they are at making sure everybody follows that rule.
So I guess legislating for a rule happens, but then there may be that, and then between legislating and actually enforcing it may be the Grand Canyon. It may be a big leap. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. So one of the other scams we've seen during the pandemic is counterfeit hand sanitizer. And it's been a real problem. Specifically, the FDA has a watch on hand sanitizers imported from Mexico because so many of them are actually made with methanol, which is not something that's supposed to be in hand sanitizer. And in some cases, people have ingested the hand sanitizer. And if you talk to any poison control hotline in any city, they'll tell you that they actually get calls about this more frequently than you would imagine. I mean, I think we all probably know you're not supposed to drink hand sanitizer, but people do, or they are sloppy and try and use it to wash out a glass and then drink from it and don't rinse the glass thoroughly. Obviously, methanol is poison. It's not meant to be consumed, and there's enough of these counterfeit hand sanitizers that are made with methanol, either from sloppy production manufacturing or because someone just didn't didn't think it mattered what kind of alcohol-based chemical they put in their hand sanitizer, that it's become a real issue. Obviously, I think you're safest. You don't actually need hand sanitizer if you wash your hands really good. So whenever possible, choose washing your hands over the hand sanitizer. And these recalls have been significant. Back in June of 2020, there were 9 of them. A month later, there were 29, and then 88. By September, there's 182. At the beginning of this year, there's 225. So there's been a significant amount of these dangerous hand sanitizers out there. And, I think one of the risks that we have is you just don't want to let small children play with it unattended, because there have been a number of cases of kids consuming hand sanitizer because they thought it was like a yogurt pack. Yeah, again, if you just wash your hands really, really well and do your ABCs while you do it, you'll be very safe. There's another scam I want to cover for a second, and it sort of is a deep dive into how criminals operate and the challenges of law enforcement, and why PSM and other people who worry about the safety of our drug supply chain are concerned about foreign suppliers of medicine that don't have a strong US presence of people, assets, and licenses. And it has to do with a couple of gentlemen from the Ukraine, Maxim Ninadov and Volodymyr Nikolayenko, who spent most of the lockdown of the pandemic in jail after they'd been arrested and then finally were sentenced a little bit ago. So there are some very serious therapeutic medications that if you have any of these diseases like breast cancer, hepatitis C, or Hodgkin's, when you get this medication, you get it not because you think it would be helpful, but because you and your doctor have decided that it is critical to addressing your very serious disease. And so these medicines are good candidates for counterfeiting. What happened was these 2 Ukrainians I mentioned apparently had been making fake products, making fake versions of those products that had no active ingredient, making fake packaging, and then selling them. And along the way, one of those products, which is a Merck product, was referred to immigrations and customs enforcement. Someone from Merck who was doing some test buys online bought it, realized it was fake, and they took all this information and basically gave it to the cops and said, look, there's a real terrible crime happening here. And ICE, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, has undercover agents. They proceeded to start negotiating purchases of this product. And it was really quite scary, because what they got and they tested in the labs, the packaging was counterfeit, the pills themselves were counterfeit, the vials were counterfeit. And they just said, you wire us the money through Western Union and we'll send it to you in the small package mail. And it showed up and it was really fake. And so at this point, the agents from Immigrations and Customs Enforcement have a problem. They have criminals who are doing something bad and they're in another country. They first decided to take an interesting step. They told the criminals that using WhatsApp, which is an app that you can use to text on your phone, they told the criminals that they were not getting all their messages through WhatsApp and asked if they could move their conversation to email. And the criminals said, sure, here's our Gmail address. It's like healthynation@gmail.com, which is probably your first sign that this is not a legitimate drug wholesaler, is that they don't even have like a domain name. But they went ahead and they moved the conversation to Gmail, and the investigators got a warrant from a judge to look through their email and found that they were actually selling to other products, to other people, Revlimid and Soliris, and that they were in the process of negotiating constantly with glass makers and printers and someone to make a vial capping machine. When you have an injectable product, you have a special cap that you can put a syringe through, and it's not as easy as to affix and make as other caps. And so they were getting a machine so they could, make more of these fake products. So at this point, they really knew they had some criminals that were doing really bad things. They'd been shipping into the U.S. and they were like, how do we get these guys out of the Ukraine? We can't just go to the Ukraine and arrest them, right? That's actually, we don't have any legal right to go to the Ukraine and arrest them. And we're a little afraid that if you try and work too much with the Ukrainian government, you might find yourself in the position of having your information about your case leaked, and maybe these guys would proceed to run to another country. So what they did was they lured them to Houston. They said, we want to make a really, really big purchase. And so if you come to Houston, we'll have a business meeting and we'll sort of work this out, and you can really grow your business and we'll help you. And so we'll help you get visas. And so they got them visas for a business trip to Houston. And when they got here, they had their meeting, and then on the way back to the airport, they had them arrested. What was interesting is that these gentlemen, if they'd had to been extradited from the Ukraine, it would have been a very long and problematic process. You have to first win a trial in the Ukraine to get them extradited, and then they come to the US and you have to win a second trial. That could take 8, 9, 10 years, and you might lose at any point on some technicality. So they lured them here, and then they were able to arrest them and then try them in US court, or in this case, they actually accepted a plea bargain because they knew that they were guilty. But what they found in their luggage was yet another counterfeit. So there is this medication called Eclusig that was found in Switzerland a number of years ago, and no one had been able to figure out where it came from. It was counterfeit. It was basically just Advil instead of actual, medicine, which I think is for leukemia. And it was completely fake. And these guys had the packages for this fake product in their luggage. So while they haven't been charged with this crime, they actually did seem to have something to do with it. And, there were some real warning signs, right? The medicines that they were selling were either half off or 2/3 off the price, or in some cases 80% off the price. That's a pretty bad sign that this is not real medicine. And so this is just one more lesson that we see in the counterfeiting space. If the price is too good to be true, it is in fact not a real product, because that's not how the medicine sales work. And as a consumer, right, you're not in the business of buying medicine for a pharmacy, but as a consumer, there's just some things to be aware of. Foreign criminals are and have for 20 years been making and selling perfect looking counterfeits. Your pharmacist cannot tell a good looking counterfeit from the real product. And that we can't always actually get these people out of the countries they're in. That means that you really cannot safely purchase medicine from foreign vendors, right? When they do something wrong, they know that they're unlikely to ever have to come into a US court unless they make a mistake and go vacation in Disneyland. And so that's actually the important lesson there, is that you need to stay within the US supply chain if you want to be safe. One last example I want to mention is that there was just a really big fake drug seizure just a couple of weeks ago. And Customs and Border Protection did like a week-long intense study of packages coming in Cincinnati, and found fake breast cancer hormone treatments, fake HIV meds, fake Crohn's disease treatments that have to be kept cold, and they were not shipped cold enough in their packages, so they would have been ineffective even if they had been real. Fake infertility medications, fake medications for people who experience seizures, and then fake COVID-19 test kits, and then weirdly unapproved by the FDA liposuction machines, which sounds terrifying to me. I think that would actually make me think that I don't think I want you to put that machine in my body, but someone was actually selling fake liposuction machines. So that was a pretty scary, and that was just a 1-week intensive. That gives us a good sense that what's flowing through packages coming into the US is pretty illegal. They had this one medication that they were importing, which is actually banned in the US because it has neurological and cardiovascular negative effects. So the FDA has specifically not allowed it to be sold in the US, but it was someone here in the US was buying it and importing it, which is pretty scary. And then
Shabir,
just,
excuse me,
yes,
I'm sorry to interrupt you,
yeah.
but you did just mention how counterfeiters are really experts in creating fake meds that certainly the layperson would not be able to detect. But you also said that a pharmacist may also fail to identify counterfeit meds. We
Hmm.
had an audience member ask if that's the case, is there a possibility of having some sort of a tracking system from end to end?
Yes. So we do actually have in the US what's called a track and trace system, which is mostly about tracing. And every medicine that is made for the US market as it comes off the assembly line is given a 2D barcode and a serial number along with the date and lot number. And every saleable unit has that number, and every entity is supposed to scan that barcode all the way until it gets to the pharmacy. So it's basically a supply chain protection system. And you can actually, a pharmacist could pick up that bottle and look at that code and then check with, let's say, the manufacturer. Is this code something you made? Is this the right lot number? When did you make it? And has it been subject to any kind of recall? It's a great system. We're about 8 years into its rollout. It actually completes in 2023, but already all the medicine that would be in a pharmacy-sized bottle already has these codes on it. And the Health and Human Services Inspector General recently did an experiment where they said, okay, the system's not done being rolled out, but let's go and see. Let's go and check some of these barcodes. Can we trace this medicine back to the manufacturer? And even without the system being finished, in 3/4 of the cases, they were able to. And so it's a really great system. Canada doesn't have a track and trace system. The Ukraine doesn't have one. The EU does have one, but it's not really compatible with the US one. And then getting back to what you said, counterfeiters, can make these blister packs like you see on screen. They can make perfect printed packaging. It's really quite challenging, but pharmacists will be able to at the end of the rollout in 2023 be able to actually check the bottles that they buy and see that they've all been traced back to the manufacturer.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much to our audience member for the question and to Shabir for a very thorough answer. We did have another remark coming in because Shabir, a lot of this is talking about what's happening in other countries and how it affects the U.S. and certainly patients in the U.S. This remark said that Mexican pharmacies on the border between Mexico and the United States also bear counterfeit medicines intended to U.S. customers. Basically, they cross the border to get the medicines at very low prices, but get counterfeit medicines, unfortunately. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The founder, one of the 3 founding members of the Partnership for Safe Medicines, is a very famous in pharmacy circles professor named Dr. Marv Shepard. He's a pharmacist. He helped found PSM because he was crossing the Mexican border, buying those medicines, bringing them back into his chemistry lab in Texas and checking them, and was appalled to find that they didn't have enough, or in some cases, any active ingredient. And of course, the people who take it can't tell unless it's got some kind of heavy metal or a poison in it. You're not going to drop dead. The worst is you might say, it doesn't feel like it usually feels, but generally people can't tell, and that's a really dangerous situation, and that's why he helped start the partnership to raise awareness about this issue.
So important. And we're getting some comments as well, something I never thought of, that there can be counterfeits for pet medications, which seem to be overlooked. And I don't know if you've heard of that or if you can agree with that as well, Shabir.
It's true there are counterfeits of pet medications. They don't get as much attention, although if you, as I do, own a cat and a dog, you are concerned about it. The National Association of Boards of Pharmacy, though, has a certification system that allows you to specifically say, to identify pharmacies that have been screened. And the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy is the representative entity for all the state boards of pharmacies, so you know it's safe. And so if you're thinking about buying pet meds and you think you found one that's cheaper, you might go to the to NABP's website and also to the BuySafeRx website and see if you can find one that's safe.
Fantastic. Sorry about that. Fantastic. Thank you again to our audience member for bringing that up, because that's certainly not anything I would have thought of. And another comment I thought was interesting is that, would you agree, is this accurate, Shabir? Pharma companies may take action against their brands for obvious reasons, but are generic medications and illegal drugs more overlooked as far as counterfeits than name brands?
So generic medications are regulated as patented medications are, and
I
so
see.
they're not overlooked, and they're also just like patented medications. If you get them from a U.S. licensed pharmacy, they're just as safe. And I would say this: our generics market is very aggressive. The FDA is very aggressive about bringing in and screening generic medications um, for manufacturers to get as many of those manufacturers making as many different generics as possible, because they found that when you get 3 or 4 generic manufacturers, the price of medications plummets. And of course, the generic is equivalent to the brand. So it is the number one way I tell people, if you're trying to save money, look, and there's a generic, go look at the generics. You know, don't risk your life by going online trying to find some foreign pharmacy. If there's a generic, get that generic here, because it's certainly safer, but it's also probably cheaper, even cheaper than Canadian generics.
Thank you so much, Shabir, and thank you to our audience member for voicing that concern.
So just a couple of weeks ago, there's a global operation to seize counterfeits, and they seized 9 million fake medical devices and pharmaceuticals. My favorite is that they found these, one country that was doing searches found these beans, these cans of beans, and thought they looked a little suspicious. I don't know if it was the marketing copy on the label that says heal and eat, but something tripped the inspectors and they opened it up and these cans were just full of pills. There was no beans in there at all. And the pills were, of course, not real pills. You know, you would never take something that you smuggled in through a can of beans. You know, as we think about ways to stay safe and the people we care for, right? Grandparents that maybe are not super internet savvy, we want them to try and save money on medication and not endanger themselves. And so we have this bookmark that we obviously work with NeedyMeds. You can see the NeedyMeds logo on there, that just has the 5 ways that we can give our friends and family to save money and stay safe. And obviously using NeedyMeds cards is number 1, finding generics, talking to your pharmacist. Your pharmacist actually probably knows your insurance rules better than you do and can tell you, you know, we can save some money if we fill it for 90 days versus 30 days, if that's allowed. You know, this particular medication has a generic that is $4 in cash versus running it through your insurance where you have to pay $20. Like, there's all sorts of tips like that that are great. And then of course you can, if you're going to shop online, you know, there is a special domain name like .com or .org called .pharmacy. And the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy runs that, and you cannot get a .pharmacy website name without actually being a real pharmacy. And so that's a really good tip. And on the back
So
of this,
important. And Shabir, to interrupt you again, because we are talking about online reputable sources and ways to find out if they are. Have you heard of legal script and pharmacy checker certifications? And if you know anything about them, would you be able to share your opinion on whether or not legal script or pharmacy checker certifications are reliable?
So I have not heard of legal script, but that's not surprising. I have heard of pharmacy checker, and I would say if you want to maintain safety, you should probably stick with the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy, because they are affiliated with the state boards of pharmacy that regulate your pharmacy. The other organizations are not. There's only really one entity like that, and they work also with Legit Script. And Legit Script is another company that works with NABP, and so they're a good source. But there's many of these other certification entities out there, and I can't say I can't give you any assurances that they would be safe, but I can tell you that the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy is a safe source for screening any online website.
Thank you.
That is the presentation I have. I'm absolutely happy for more questions, but I just want to say it was a joy to actually get questions as we went, because I think that makes the time together more productive and interactive and is more engaging. If you like the information I presented, if you're interested in learning more and staying up to date on the counterfeit problem in the US, we do a new video about 2 minutes long every week, and we post it to all of our social media channels. And you can see it there. Whichever one you happen to spend the most time in, please search for the Partnership for Safe Medicines and you'll find us, and just click follow and mash the subscribe button, as the YouTubers say. That's it for me, Carla.
Shabir, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share your expertise with NeedyMeds users. And we let our audience members know, as you all heard in the beginning, to please be vocal about your questions throughout the presentation. And the reason we do that is because, as you can tell, Shabir has such a breadth and scope of resources and information and expertise that we really want to make the most out of it when we get him here to do a presentation. And we do see a bunch of other questions coming in, which we certainly will get to in a moment. In the meantime, I'm going to just mention a few things about NeedyMeds, but before I get there, I want to say some takeaways for me for this presentation. One of the most important ones, I think, is really stressing what you just said, Shabir, which is go to safemedicines.org, check out those YouTube videos. They are really impressive and informative, quick. They will keep you well informed, and this topic is changing all the time. So the safest place to go to stay up to date on this important topic of making sure you and your loved ones, patients, and clients get safe medicines is to visit that safemedicines.org website and check out their social media accounts and sign up for their YouTube channel. And I also really like that you stress throughout your presentation that pharmacists are not only the guardians of safe medications, but they can also be a resource for helping you to save on your medication expenses and other healthcare costs. We at NeedyMeds also stress making sure pharmacists are you consider them part of your healthcare team, because the knowledge and the assistance they can provide is often unparalleled. So, and of course, the biggest takeaway is making sure to share safemedicines.org with your family, friends, loved ones, patients, and clients, because like I said, there's a lot of information and it's a big topic. So staying up to date is super important. So with that, I'm going to go ahead. I do see everybody's questions coming in, and we will absolutely get to those. Before we do, I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about NeedyMeds and the resources that we have. So Shabir, can you see my screen now?
I can.
Fantastic. So I'm not going to go over all of these healthcare savings programs that you see on your screen. One thing I am simply going to mention is, I think Shabir would agree, and probably many audience members, that oftentimes a big obstacle for people getting connected to safe medications is they feel, and they might not be able to simply afford them. That is a huge problem that affects so many individuals and their families, and we're no surprise seeing more and more of that as we continue to weather this pandemic. So I just want to remind everybody that in addition to educational resources, we do have healthcare saving programs that will help you afford your healthcare expenses. And you can find all of these healthcare savings programs under that healthcare savings tab on needymeds.org that I pointed out in the beginning of the presentation. I also mentioned that we do our best to populate our calendar events with webinars that we think NeedyMeds users will be interested in. What you're looking at is just a snapshot of some other upcoming webinars that I hope you join us for. And again, you can find out more about these and sign up for them in two places on needymeds.org. You'll find them under that education tab next to the healthcare savings tab, or on the bottom right calendar of events. So as promised, I'm leaving the contact information up for the Partnership for Safe Medicines, as well as NeedyMeds. So if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and reach out and check out our websites anyway. So let's get to some of those questions coming in that we didn't have a chance to get to during the presentation. Now, one of the ones that came in is, and I love this one, this was actually one I jotted down as you were speaking: where can we report illegal online pharmacies if we become aware of them, Shabir? Shabir, it looks like you might be muted.
Welcome to 2021. I'm on mute. So there is a division of the FDA that is in charge of chasing down illegal online pharmacies called the FDA's Office of Criminal Investigation. And so you can report illegal online pharmacies to them, and they work with all the other parts of federal law enforcement to get them shut down if it's possible. And let me just be clear, if you look at surveys by the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy, there are tens of thousands of illegal online pharmacies operating outside of our borders, trying to sell to Americans all day long. And it's a giant game of whack-a-mole. But you know, they do good work to get these people shut down, and sometimes they actually can trick them into getting into a U.S. court, and they can put them in jail, which is good for everybody. So yeah, what I will do is I will send to you, Carla, the link that you can do an online report for, and you can circulate it in a post-event email.
Sounds good. I'd be happy to. And speaking of post-webinar, we did get a request for some audience members who may wish to continue this conversation beyond this session, and maybe stay in touch with safemedicines.org, the Partnership for Safe Medicine Disposal. Do you guys offer a mailing list or way to sort of join in the efforts? We're getting some audience members that actually are not in our country, but are quite interested in securing medical lines and looking to partner on a universal approach.
Yes, so we're actually a member of a global coalition called Fight the Fakes. So if you're not in the US, I suggest you go online and Google Fight the Fakes Coalition, and you'll probably find in there an organization that covers your area, or you can also email them and ask them if there's a way to assist. You know, this battle for drug safety and medical device safety is a battle that every country in some ways has to fight themselves, but that work can be coordinated globally, and the Fight the Fakes Foundation is trying hard to do that, and that's why we're a member. If you are in the US, if you go to our homepage, you'll find email sign. You'll find a little box in the top left that shows you where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter, and we do roundups of all the counterfeit stories in America on that email every Monday morning, as well as a link to the last video we did. And then more importantly, there's some real important issues happening in Congress right now that affect drug safety. And we have opportunities there that you can use and take advantage of to basically voice your concern with your elected officials about the safety of the medicine supply and the danger of counterfeits.
Thank you, Shabir. And just to be clear, the Global Alliance, the place you can find that destination, once again, is Fight the Fakes.
Yes, that is their name. They're easily Googleable.
Perfect. And another question coming in, and I love this one because, again, it's one I would have asked. And Shabir and I actually had this conversation, which is that we, especially Shabir, really likes these questions because he feels that if one person is thinking of it, there's probably others thinking of it as well. And I could attest to that with this question, which is, I think it's common sense. Why do drug dealers make fake pills that can kill people? Is that not a killing your customer sort of problem that would reduce sales? Great question.
That is a great question, and I have this, and the answer is a little macabre. The first answer is that they don't have good quality controls. They don't always make them to be deadly on purpose.
Oh, I never thought of that, right.
Yeah, the guy making pills in his garage with a pill press he ordered over the internet is not producing a product that has got the exact same 1 milligram of fentanyl in it that you might get if it were making a if it were like Pfizer making it, right? They have significant quality control. That's the first problem, or the first reason. The second reason is that it's actually not bad for business, and that sounds appalling. But if you are struggling with addiction, your body has upregulated and is not as respondent to the same amount of, let's say, fentanyl, of an opioid, as someone who doesn't ever take opioids. And so you're always looking for a stronger product to try and keep the withdrawal symptoms at bay. And so we've seen over and over again, someone will have a death from being poisoned from a pill made with fentanyl and die. And narcotics detectives tell me that when they see that, they panic and try and figure out where the pills are coming from right away, because everybody else in the area that is looking for strong product will flock to that dealer to get that product, because they want product that's as strong as possible. And they will also then be poisoned and go into an overdose state, and have to be, Narcaned back to life if someone's around to give them Narcan. So it's not actually bad for business in some cases. As a family member advocate who lost her son pointed out to me, she said, my son believed that if he bought on the dark web, he would be safe, because if there was bad product, those people would leave bad reviews. But when my son died from a fake pill with too much fentanyl, I came to realize that dead people don't leave bad reviews. So it's a real challenge to actually get accountability. And unless you're caught selling this product, no one knows that you made the bad pill.
Wow, that is not at all. I mean, I am so, like many of these really intelligent questions we have had from our audience members who are participating, that was a really important question and so eye-opening for me, because it is not at all the answer that I expected. So I'm glad you had an opportunity to share your response with that. So we actually are going to wrap up the question section. Again, if we didn't get to answer your question, we will follow up with you by email. But also, please feel free to reach out to either of our organizations at the contact information on your screen. As Shabir mentioned, he does have a resource that we're going to share as a follow-up email, so you can expect that tomorrow or the beginning of next week at the absolute latest. But after this presentation, don't forget to check out and download the materials we put in that handout section of your GoToWebinar control panel. Visit safemedicines.org. Subscribe to their YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on the videos they're publishing, because like I said, you're going to want to see those. And you will all receive a video of today's presentation that will come in an email from the GoToWebinar platform if you'd like to refer to anything Shabir covered or share it with others that may be interested in. I do want to say we do have Shabir and the Partnership for Safe Medicines regularly come back and present at NeedyMeds, and I am making sure to mention that so I can guilt Shabir into coming back again and reminding him that he is on a recorded line promising to come back again. So please check out that NeedyMeds calendar of events to see those Partnership for Safe Medicines webinars that I promise you, and Shabir promises you, will absolutely be on the calendar in the NeedyMeds future.
Happy to do so.
Thank you so much. Everybody heard that? That's on a recorded line. So a big thank you to our audience for participating so much. It really made the presentation even more enjoyable and informative. And of course, a thank you to my friend and colleague Shabir for sharing his expertise with NeedyMeds users. I hope to see all of your names pop up in future webinars. And if I hadn't said it enough, I really encourage you to regularly check out safemedicines.org and their videos to stay up to date on all issues about how to buy medication safely. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the day. And big thank you to Shabir.
Thank you, Carla.
Take care.